Dolly's health challenges did not begin in her later years. Decades earlier, during one of the most important periods of her career, she faced a deeply personal medical crisis. In the early 1980s, Dolly was at the height of her fame. Her music career was thriving, and she was becoming a major star beyond country music. But in 1982, her life was suddenly interrupted by serious health problems. She suffered severe abdominal pain and unexpected bleeding, forcing her to stop working and seek medical attention. The diagnosis was endometriosis, a painful condition in which tissue similar to the lining of the uterus grows outside the uterus. For Dolly, the illness brought not only physical pain but also consequences that would change her life forever. In her late 30s, she underwent surgery that resulted in a partial hysterectomy. The operation permanently ended her ability to have biological children. For someone who had spent years building a life filled with dreams, love, music, and family, the emotional impact was devastating. Dolly had always been open about her love for children. Although she and her husband, Carl Dean, never had children together, Dolly later became a beloved figure to countless young people through her family, charitable work, and eventually the Imagination Library. But at that moment in the 1980s, the loss of the possibility of biological motherhood was profoundly painful. The physical effects of the surgery were difficult enough, but the emotional consequences were even more severe. The hormonal changes that followed, combined with grief and exhaustion, led Dolly into a serious period of depression. Years later, she spoke honestly about experiencing an emotional crisis during that period. She described feeling overwhelmed and reaching an extremely dark place in her life. It was a time when fame and success could not protect her from pain. What helped her through was not one simple solution. Dolly leaned on the people who loved her, her family, and, above all, her deep spiritual faith. Slowly, she found a way to move forward. And perhaps that experience helped shape one of the most powerful parts of Dolly Parton's public legacy, her ability to speak about pain without allowing pain to define her. She had suffered, but she survived. She had lost something deeply important, but she continued to build a life filled with purpose. Yet emotional struggles were only part of the physical price Dolly paid over the decades. Her famous appearance became one of the most recognizable images in entertainment history. Dolly herself often joked about her glamorous figure and the effort required to maintain her public image. But her trademark silhouette also created physical challenges. Years of performing, traveling, standing for long periods, and wearing high heels placed strain on her body. Dolly openly discussed back and neck discomfort associated with the physical demands of her appearance and career. Unlike many celebrities, however, Dolly rarely pretended that maintaining her image came effortlessly. She was famously open about cosmetic procedures and rejected the idea that she should be ashamed of them. In her own humorous and direct way, she described such work as part of maintaining the image she had created. To Dolly, glamour was part of the performance. And if maintenance was required to preserve that image, she saw no reason to hide it. But by 2025 and 2026, health concerns began to take on greater importance. The death of her beloved husband, Carl Dean, in March 2025 marked a heartbreaking turning point. The couple had shared a relationship lasting nearly 6 decades, while Carl had largely remained outside the spotlight that followed his famous wife. His death was a tremendous personal loss for Dolly. In the period surrounding his illness and death, Dolly later acknowledged that she had not always given enough attention to her own well-being. Her focus had been on caring for Carl, grieving his loss, and continuing to handle the enormous responsibilities that surrounded her life and career. By 2026, her health problems were increasingly affecting her professional plans. Dolly had long struggled with kidney stones and underwent medical treatment for related health issues. In public comments, she used her trademark humor to talk about the difficult experiences she had endured. But there was also a more serious side to the situation. She revealed that problems involving her immune and digestive systems had left her feeling unwell and dizzy. The treatments she was receiving also affected how she felt physically, making the demands of live performance increasingly difficult. For an entertainer famous for performing in elaborate costumes and high heels, even dizziness became a major concern. The health challenges eventually affected one of the most anticipated events of her later career, her Las Vegas residency. The shows were first postponed and were ultimately cancelled as Dolly focused on treatment and recovery. She remained optimistic publicly, saying she was responding to treatment and needed more time to heal before returning to the demands of the stage. Only a day before reports of her death, News coverage described Dolly as still discussing her health challenges and looking toward future creative possibilities, including new ways of sharing her performances with audiences. Please like this video and give your support. Then came the news on August 25, 2026. Multiple major news outlets reported that Dolly Parton had died at the age of 80 following a period of escalating health problems. Reports said she had been hospitalized at Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville shortly before her death, with kidney and autoimmune complications reported among her final medical concerns. The news sent shockwaves around the world. For generations of fans, Dolly Parton seemed almost unstoppable. She had survived professional pressure, personal heartbreak, painful illness, emotional struggles, and the relentless demands of fame. But her story was never about being invincible. It was about resilience. Behind the famous smile was a woman who knew pain. Behind the glamorous image was someone who had faced difficult medical challenges. And behind the global superstar was a deeply human person who sometimes became exhausted, overwhelmed, and heartbroken. That is perhaps why Dolly Parton meant so much to so many people. She never needed to pretend that life was perfect. Through some of her hardest moments, she continued to believe that there could be light after darkness, purpose after pain, and another chapter after a devastating loss. And even as the world now remembers her extraordinary career, it is impossible to separate Dolly Parton's legacy from the strength she showed during the difficult moments that audiences did not always see. Her health battles may have tested her body and spirit, but they also revealed something essential about the woman behind the legend.